Hello, welcome to Muay Ying, the podcast. Today we have Thai-Ngan on the show to talk about corporate world to fight world. Thai is a Vietnamese American from Oakland, California, who's had dozens of amateur Muay Thai fights. Earlier this year, she made the move to Thailand, turned pro, and has been training full time there for 6 months. Welcome to Muay Ying, Thai. Thanks for coming on to chat. How has your week in Muay Thai been?
Hi, hello everyone. Hi, Angela. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Really appreciate it. This week was a good week. It's good when it moved by really fast and when I didn't have much pain from the training and when I just had a really, really awesome big dinner. So it's been a good week.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like everything that is great about life, honestly.
Yes.
So Ty, we've known each other for a few years now, but I didn't actually like meet you until maybe like almost 2 years ago in person. And then when I met you was when I went over to San Francisco to train and teach a seminar. And then, speaking with you and meeting you in person there, like your passion just like really showed through in like the way that you talked about fighting or talked about training or just talked about how you like managed because before you worked for like a big tech company and then the job you had before that was also another big tech company. So then, you know, uh, what was that like when you were still in California training and fighting while working for these, full-time jobs at these big companies?
Yeah. Um, I had 10 years in corporate America and two pretty awesome jobs at two really big companies. Um, and while I was working full time, I had my side gig, my passion. I moonlight as a Muay Thai fighter, and it required a lot of time management for sure, because my work days are 8-hour days, and the training sessions for the first 8 years when I was with Ganyao, I would train mornings and nights when I had fights. When I shifted over to Jongsanan for the last 2 years, we would train once, even with fights. So I had to really manage my schedule carefully. If I train in the morning, uh, then I had to wake up around like 5:30 to get to the gym, have my morning session, go to work, and then come back for a nighttime session. Um, when I train once, then it will be around 3 p.m. Then that would mean I would have to still wake up early, get all the work out of the way by 3 p.m., and then come train. But overall, I thought it was manageable, um, but I didn't realize that I was kind of half-assing both worlds. Um, I thought I was managing it fairly well, but I think when I moved over to Jongsanan, he really like one of the first thing he asked me was, "What are your goals? Are you just doing this for fun?" And I thought I was doing it more than that. It was a deeper passion than just a hobby. But when he really called me out on it, I started thinking about it and really had to figure out what my goals for this are. And is it just I'm fighting just for fun?
Up until like that point when he asked you the question, were you
Mhm.
just kind of like, because you know how some people they go through life like, oh, this is just something I do, and then this is the next step, and this is the next step. Were you kind of like that in a way, like just kind of like, oh yeah, I wake up and I go to work and I go to the gym. It was just like a routine kind of thing versus something with intention. It seemed like you wanted some intention behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I've always been a bit of an undecisive person. I have a lot of passions, and I think with especially with millennials, there are so many options that are available to us, right? We can't just commit to one thing. The 8-hour workday is not enough, and I need a passion. So I found Muay Thai, and I um, it got incorporated into my routine, and it was definitely much more than just something just for fun. But I think there was just so many distractions for me alongside with the work week. I enjoy the party life. I enjoy the traveling life. I fought when I can, but that's it, right? I fought when I can, rather than uh, 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 really zooming in and prioritizing fighting. I thought it was like number one or two on my list, but it was like number four after, of course, work, family, life,
When you had space
travel.
in your schedule to be like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, I guess I could squeeze a fight in there or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah. And I realized, like, after going over to Johnson now, like, that's not how you develop yourself. And I realize that now, looking back at it, like that was no way to manage a fight life, because I would fight and do either what well or okay, but then we have such a long break in between. Uh, and then when I get back into the next fight camp, I would be fat, and like the first couple of weeks would be trying to cut that weight again. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ganyao Fairtex and Jongsanon Fairtex. Can you give like a very, very short introduction as to like who they are and their significance in like Muay Thai in America, especially?
Yeah.
And also like how did them as being your two main coaches in the US, how did that develop your career um as you were like how did that develop your career to being a pro fighter now? Um, Especially since like before when you were with them, you were working all these full-time jobs. Like
Mhm.
it seemed like Jongsunan wanted you to have more attention, but then at the same time, it was like, I remember you telling me when I was in San Francisco, like, yeah, he wanted you to fight, but he didn't want you to stress out about certain things about the fight. Like, oh, you work a full-time job. Why stretch yourself out on cutting all this weight, for
Yeah.
example?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a big, good question. So for introductions, Ganyao Fairtex and Johnson on Fairtex. Ganyao first came to the States in the mid '90s to open up Fairtex in America in Arizona. So he was one of the pioneers of Fairtex in America. And then they moved from Arizona to San Francisco, and that's when Johnson came a couple years later. Uh, so Jongsonan is already a very like highly decorated fighter in Thailand. So when he came to the States, he trained under Ganya. So Ganya is the old man, and then Jongsonan trained under him, who is my old man number two. Um, they are significant in Muay Thai America. They're one of the pioneers of Muay Thai in America, really. Um,
Some actually say that they were like, well, Ganya especially, he was like the first top Muay Thai trainer to come to the
I
US.
think
And I
so.
mean, I don't know how significant, like, I don't know how accurate that statement is, but that's something that I just hear from like everyone. So I'm like, I guess I'll accept it. I mean, if no one's gonna give me other
Refute
proof,
it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I've also heard that as well, but I haven't really done my research there. But yes, the Ganya, the big man, is very significant in Muay Thai in America. But both of them are super significant for me as well. So I trained with Ganya for 8 years at Pacific Ring Sports in Oakland. And by the time I've met him, the feedback that I got was that he is so much nicer than what he was back in the day.
He
Yeah,
chilled out with age.
he chilled out with age for sure. Because back in the day when he was at Fairtex, the consensus is that he was very, very scary, which is unreal because this is like this tall 6'4" Thai bald man who's always making dirty jokes. That is just such a sweetheart. So when I came to him, he is just he's already trained countless champions and world champions. So now he's hanging back at Pacific Ring Sports, teaching folks for smokers and amateurs. So he chose me as one of the people for his fight team and started developing me. But I was young at the time. I was like in my early 20s when I met Ganyao. I was very passionate about Muay Thai for sure. As soon as I started, I would come back every day, and then it became twice a day, and then have my first smoker in 6 months. And then after I think my second smoker, I had my first fight in like 8 months. And then I continued to fight after that. But I had so many things that I wanted to do. So fighting wasn't a number one priority, even though I thought that it was. Um, and I think 8 years into working with Ganyao, I've had losses here and there, But there was one loss that was super significant. I went in there with Stephanie Tangre. She trained in San Francisco, and I've sparred with her before, and I knew I could beat her. But when we got into the ring, I couldn't think. Everything just came out muscle memory. And I lost that fight to a close decision that I knew I should have won. It wasn't the judges or anything. I think it could have went either way, but I totally accepted the loss. But I felt that I shouldn't have lost. And that was when I realized that I needed more out of my training. I needed a trainer with more fire. Ganya was awesome, but he's also like my second dad, and he loves me and feeds me, and he treats me as a drinking buddy. Uh, and I needed and wanted someone with more fire. And I think at the time, it took me a long time to settle with that decision, because I was also feeling like I'm leaving my old man, I'm disloyal. But I had to really talk it through with myself that I just want more for my career. And there's so much more in my career rather than just doing 2-3 amateur fighters or fights per year. So when Johnson opened up Wooden Man in San Francisco, I asked Gan Yao to see if I can go over there to train with Johnson for 3 months for a trial period. Went over there for 3 months, trained with Johnson for a rematch with April Vergara from Boxing Works. And then did that rematch. It was so cool because for that rematch, I had both Gan Yao and Johnson in my corner. And I've never not had Gan Yao in my corner. So I flew him down there actually. And it was so cool because in my corner, Gan Yao looked at Johnson it's like, what? You train her? You corner her. Why are you looking at me? It's like passing on the torch. And Johnson didn't want to step on any toes really. He was waiting to see who would corner me. But Gan Yao's like, well, what are you looking at me for? She trained with you. Go. Did really well in that fight, won, and then moved over to Johnson for reals. And then Johnson was the one that was point blank. As soon as I step into the gym, what are your goals? Are you just fighting just for fun, or do you want something out of this? And I actually had my first answer to him was, I want to take it as far with Muay Thai as I can. Like, of course, like coming from someone who can't decide shit, right? And he's like, oh, okay. So you want to do amateur fighting? You have the heart. You need more skill and conditioning, but I can teach you that. Okay, I take you in. And then he took me in.
It was so like matter of factly. It's like an interview. It's like, do I accept her? Okay, you're accepted.
Yeah. And actually, like the more I fought with Johnson, the first year I was with Johnson I had to fight like weird weight classes because we were still figuring out how each other work. He was trying. We always have this communication block, right? Because he like English is both of our second languages, but like Muay Thai, like his understanding of Muay Thai is completely different than my understanding of Muay Thai. Of course, his is so much deeper. So there's always this language barrier. But so that first year we had to really work through like how each other train and teach and fight and corner. And I had to fight in very weird weight classes. But after a year, I think there was one time we're hanging out and he's like, honey, you can go pro. You can beat these girls. You can. It was just kind of like a side conversation, but like the way that he speaks with so much passion, and when he says something that,
I know him and I've talked to him before, and as you said that,
mm-hmm.
I like heard his voice in my head, just like,
honey,
like,
why you can go pro, you can beat these girls. And that's what got in my head. I'm like, oh, I can really do this. Like, I respect these two men so much. Gagne was the first person that says, you can fight, go fight. I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I can fight. And then Johnson like, yeah, you can go pro. I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I can go pro.
And, it seemed like they just believed in you so much. And they're like, yeah, I'll take you kind of as you are, but I'll clean you up a little bit in a way. So that must have been like really refreshing.
Yeah. And
I mean, as like in comparison to just some of the other stories I've heard from other people who didn't have coaches that were understanding, didn't invest in them, so it seemed like you had like two really, really solid coaches, and it brought you to where you are, like it like really also didn't develop you as a fighter and a person, but it developed your passion. And I
Hmm.
feel like a lot of things considered, I feel like that's really the thing that like brings you the furthest.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really awesome with them because they meet you where you're at. They would never like even like in what they would never teach me something that is completely out of my reach. And they would never something to say something that like I can't get to yet. Like the conversations that we have now is completely different than the conversations about Muay Thai than when I first started. And that's
Hmm.
the cool thing about being a brilliant trainer, right? They pick. They don't just take anybody. They have to see the heart there first, see what they can mold, and then they start molding. And it takes time. It's an investment
Yeah.
from them and from you as well.
Yeah. So based off the many things that you said earlier, I did want to bring up a very very like interesting part, or maybe interesting to a lot of our like the people who might be listening. Um how you kind of asked Ganyao for permission to
Mm-hmm.
like train with Jongsanan, and then the whole dynamic between Ganyao and Jongsanan at your fight when they're cornering you and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh no, you do it. Oh no, you do it," kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It's very like Muay Thai culture in Thailand, and
Yeah.
all all these like politics and stuff, and you like navigated it in such a like smooth way, or at least like from what you're telling us, like you did everything that that would go according to Muay Thai culture in Thailand. Like
Mm.
you talk to the person who's like your achan, your master, and then you ask them, you tell them what's going on, and you ask them for permission to do things. As opposed to a lot of people in the U.S., they just kind of like, oh, I just do whatever I want because
Mm.
it's what benefits me without
Mm.
telling anyone. And is that something that you had to learn during your time under Ganyao? Well, maybe not had, but is that something that you noticed during your time under Ganyao? And I'm sure, like you going over to Fairtex
Mm.
in Thailand now, like, do you notice the culture to be the same within the gym? Like, where you see everyone just kind of like tiptoeing around others, making sure they're not offending anyone,
Yeah.
or do you see it to be like even more intense than that?
Ooh, that's a good question. So the first part, it's very. Oh man, I don't want to say this without saying this, but it's very Asian. um, I was actually scared shitless. It took me close to a year to tell Ganyao that I wanted to train with Jongsonan. Like as soon as I lost a fight, I knew I wanted to train with Jongsonan. But it took me a year, and I actually didn't fight the entire year. Um, and I like he's my old man. Like he's always going to be my first Muay Thai teacher, but he's also my second dad. And I never want to like hurt him or break his heart. So I was very cautious. And I think what I did, same with Ganyo and Johnson. When I want to tell them something, I have to tell them 3 times. First, I'm introduce the idea, and then second time, like bring it up again, and then by the third time, they've heard it twice. So now it's a conversation. Um, and and coming over to Thailand to Fairtex, it's funny that you brought that up because the dynamic here is way more intense than that navigation that I had to do from Ganya to Johnsonan, right? Because when I had to do that navigation from Ganya to Johnsonan, it was just all internal. Like I had all these doubts, like disloyal feelings and stuff. And when it did happen, and like we all talk to each other, right? I asked Ganya to go over to Johnsonan, and Johnsonan, of course, and when I came over and Johnsonan talked to Ganya, and it was like a handshake. Okay, you take her for 3 months. But over here in Thailand, I think in the Muay Thai culture here, there's so many things that are unsaid that you have to watch and look and learn and kind of navigate. It's not really tiptoe. It's navigate. It's so complex. It's easy, but it's complex at the same time. Um, so I think so. Like Americans, I can speak for Americans. I've seen a bunch of Americans come out here, and
And
they
you are American too.
yeah
Yeah.
they don't see the complexity of like of having one trainer, respecting your trainers, not hopping around, being respectful, like not demanding pad work, like waiting your turn, things like that. And it's just, I think a lot of things that are unsaid that requires time for you to watch, observe, and absorb. And I think well, one of the downfalls with like foreigners is that like sometimes they don't come for so long, so they don't have that chance to observe. Because it took me months. It took me what I think 3 months to figure out where things are and to to know the dynamics of the hierarchies.
Yeah, when I first moved over to Thailand too, I just remember like my first trip, the first like 3 weeks, it was just kind of like, oh, I'm here. This is so much fun. I'm just here for training. But
Yeah.
I definitely like wasn't observing like the dynamics of trainer to the Thai fighters, trainers to the
Foreigners.
foreigners that were
Mhm.
there, and then trainers to the boss.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so it really wasn't until like you said, like 2-3 months in that I was like, oh, there's a system here. There's a
Mhm,
hierarchy, and it's
mhm.
like it's hierarchies within hierarchies too. So
Yeah.
it's like I definitely do think that people who one don't stay at one gym for at least a month or two, they they it just kind of goes over their head because they're
Mhm,
not looking for it, you
mhm.
know. And two, they might accidentally do things that offend people within the gym, not on purpose, but
Yeah.
then you know they're just doing things based off like, oh, what, me,
Mhm.
one, and two, it's like, oh, this is my training trip. I want to get the most out of this. I'm very excited.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna do things that I think are okay, but are actually not okay in a Thai Muay Thai gym. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So going back to just kind of comparing and contrasting, like just these two very different worlds and how you just kind of like, not, I wouldn't say like gave up, but you just kind of like jumped.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like, okay, bye corporate world, hello Muay Thai world.
Yeah.
Even though like you had your foot in the Muay Thai world, but
Yes.
just like moving to Thailand and like
Yeah,
training full time, turning pro in Thailand, it's like
yeah.
it really is like a whole like what is it
Mhm,
180.
mhm, mhm,
Um, how would you compare like how they see Muay Thai in the US, how
mhm,
they train in the US versus how they do things in Thailand. I mean, obviously Thailand's the motherland, so everything
mhm,
there I imagine would be like way more intense. But
mhm.
then like in your experience, what were the major differences that you could see?
That's a good question. Um, so the intensity aside, Muay Thai out here is a job. It is life. It is living and breathing, um, and it's something that we wake up every day. Like we have one job, and we spend all of our energy trying to perfect this one job. I think one of the questions that my friends at home would ask me is like, "Oh, what do you do in your free time?" Like, there is no free time. Oh, do you get bored? Like, no. I think in the States, like we have our 9 to 5, so we train once a day, right? And even if like the most intense training is like 2 hours, right? Here we train in the morning and afternoon. Each session itself is 2 hours, but in the morning we run 6 miles for breakfast before breakfast. So if you count all that up, what 3 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night, that's 5 hours. Before that morning training, I have to wake up early, an hour ahead to stretch, to eat, to fuel up and caffeinate. Between, I have to nap, so I have energy for the second training. And then once I'm done with training, 5:30 p.m., I need to go home. I need to eat. I need to stretch again before bed. I need to do some house chores, and that's it. That's the day, and 6 days a week. And on Sunday, like for the first couple of weeks, I went out for Sunday, but then pretty soon after, I realized like I have to rest if I want to operate 100% on Monday. Um,
Yeah.
so the intensity and the commitment is completely different. And
Hmm.
the fighting out here, like I think like comparing it to my old job, it's like I was in corporate America, and I would say I was doing a lot of like presentations, PowerPoint presentations for customers and internal teams, right? Imagine like that was my job, and I would do like a couple presentations a week. Um, But you compare it to Muay Thai, like in the States, amateur fighters fight what, 2-4 times a year? Um,
Yeah,
if so, right? 4 is like, oh, wow, whoa, you have
that's a
4,
lot.
yeah,
That's
that's
a
a lot,
lot.
yeah. I had like 2 fights a year, but out here, you can fight every month. You can fight every 2 weeks, and people do, and the motivations are different. The motivations, like for amateur in the United States, amateur fighting in the United States, is like, to frankly put it, I thought it was passion, but no, it's just for fun. It's a hobby. Um, like it is. I wasn't putting 100% into it. I frankly, I thought I was putting like at least 80%. I don't think so. But out here, you have to put 150% into it. And the fighting out here, when I say life, is not just about like 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 being happy. Like it's money. You have to fight to make money, and everyone around you has that same goal and same purpose. So the motivation for fighting is very different, which brings to like the actual fighting is different. Like in the States, like 3 rounds amateur, people go like buck wild and just like gas out in the first round and just go crazy, right? But out here, there's it's a strategy. You go in it, depending on who you fight, there's a strategy how you fight first, second, third, fourth round. You try not to get hurt so that you can go on and fight in the next couple of weeks so that you can support your family.
Hmm. uh you also brought up a good point about how in the US, most people, they have their like 9 to 5 job, and then they go train. And then when people work in the US, if they're working in like the traditional sense, they work, and as soon as they leave work, they're free to kind of just like
Yeah.
be their own person outside of work and just kind of do whatever they want that has nothing to do with work. But it's not the case for Muay Thai fighters in Thailand, because
Mm-hmm.
they live at the gym, they
Mm-hmm.
eat at the gym, all their friends are from the gym. So it's like, yeah, maybe they're done with training, but they're still very much like at
Yeah.
work in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Muay Thai in America for amateur fighting is a choice. Is a choice and is a privilege. Out here, the Thais don't have a choice. It's like they live in camps, and it's tough work. It's really really tough, and they don't have a choice.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time. Like, whenever people ask me about like going over there, or what it's like meeting all these Thai fighters, I always tell them, I'm like, dude, it's a privilege to be able to choose this lifestyle. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even through the struggles that we go through, it's like, we, at the end of the day, like, this is something that we consciously were like, yeah, we want to do this. Whereas for them, it's all right, money on the table, food on the table for the family. It's
Yeah,
two completely different things.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
what Going over from like corporate America,
Mm-hmm.
training in America, to not doing the corporate world,
Mm-hmm.
taking your job on as being like a pro Muay Thai fighter, what was the biggest adjustment? Like, it could be a cultural adjustment or just like a physical, mental adjustment.
Oh wow, that's a good question. Um, I think about this a lot. And when I came out here, or before I came out here, I started keeping a journal. Uh,
Hmm.
because like in working 10 years in corporate America, like it screws up, it screws up with your head. I realized that during that year of COVID, a lot of like introspection happened, a lot of backpacking in the woods happened with my friends, a lot of time to really think and realize that I was like an anxiety ridden person. Like in corporate America, I had to every single day thinking about how to best be passive aggressive in this email to manipulate and get what you want. Essentially, I had to really purge a lot of that out of my system. But so I started keeping a journal to through the year of COVID to really like to put my thoughts down in writing and to really process it. Um, and that really helped because when I came out here, there were 3 big things that I found to be um, big things that needed adjustments. There was the external, the internal, and the interpersonal. So I think
Hmm.
that the external is where my physical body meets the outside world. The training is ridiculously intense. Like, I think I told you the first week out here, I realized I was dehydrated. I took my bullshit
Yeah.
low sugar, low sodium diet out here with me, and immediately was hit with dehydration. Pull my calf.
I remember you messaging me. You're like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "Girl."
Yeah. So I had to really like get used to acclimate to the climate, acclimate to the scheduling and all of that. That was the external, right? The physical world. And then the internal, like my mind and soul, they're blunt as shit out here. First, you know, and it's of course it's that loss in translation, right? Him or her started training, and in the States we clinch, but we don't clinch that much, and not like out here. So my friend Matt Lucas told the trainers, yeah, she wants to fight and she can fight. They took one look at me. Your clinch no good. You get beat by Tiger for sure, 100%. And then Matt looks at me and is like, yeah, your clinch sucks. You need to clinch every day. And there was no malice behind it or anything. And that's what I had to really do. I had to to stop. Like I'm feeling shitty because they're saying these things about me that doesn't make me feel good. Because in the States, like our trainers don't really say that. They do, but in a nicer way. It's like sugarcoating it. But out here, they're like, oh, you suck at clinch. Um, so I had to really get off my high horse and really like realize like all these things that like all these trainers will be telling me about my abilities are facts. Like it's not meant to hurt my feelings. It's literally these are facts, and the way that I get better is accept them as facts and then figure out ways to improve. So that was really the internal like don't feel bad about myself. Don't overthink shit. Like what they say are just facts, and it is a-okay. And then the third one was the interpersonal. What we touched on was that hierarchy, because depending on how long you come out here, how they treat you is different. Because the Thais, the first things they'll ask you, "What's your name? How old are you? How long are you here for?" Because they need to know how to address you. They want to know if they Y to you or you Y to them in terms of age, at that respect level. And the third one is how long are you out here for? Meaning like what's my investment in you should be. If you're out here for a week, oh, you're gonna have the best time of your life. We're just gonna give you the best workout of your life. If you're here for a month, okay, we'll kind of dial it back depending on when you're tired or not. And I told them I was out here for a year. So I have to go through all that phases, right? The first couple of weeks where they're giving me like hard pad work and tiring me out. And then the second month where they still see me around, but I can't speak the language. We can't communicate with each other yet. So there is a kind of that little friction point there. They still see me. They have to take care of me now, but we're not buddies yet. And by the third month, after I learned some Thai and after I figure out that they always ask the same questions anyway, when are you fighting? How are you? Things like that. Then there's a better bond. But that third piece, that interpersonal piece, of course, still working through it every day, making a strong commitment to learn the Thai language now so I can actually communicate with these folks. But now, even if my Thai is still crappy, but we have a rapport now, and especially like after you fight as well, your bond with your trainer, or my bond with my trainer is stronger, and my bond with my training partners are much stronger as well. Uh,
How are you learning Thai, by the way? Are you learning like online, or is someone tutoring you, or?
I think it's going to be a multi-phase. This is phase one is YouTube online. I'm learning the alphabet first for sure. Learning the alphabet, listening to like the beginner Thai pod ones where they teach you how to speak conversational Thai. And then my training buddies, we're tight now, so there's no longer a little bit, but there's no longer that big friction point where like they're afraid of speaking English to me or I'm afraid of speaking English to them. And it's okay now because we'll have a word we want to say and we don't know what the other language is, but we just start practicing. And like my pronunciation may be wrong, they'll laugh at me, but then teach me the right way. And I
Yeah.
think after this, I'll get tutored.
Do you think that part of that too is like like Fairtex is such a well-known gym, but then their fight team, it's not like a huge fight team. You know what I mean? For the size of the gym, if they wanted, they could have like 30 fighters, but they don't, right? They have like under 10.
No, 28.
They have 28 fighters?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, I had no idea. 'Cause I guess I just go
The,
off
oh,
whatever I
the big
see people
ones.
scheduled on
Yeah.
like the televised shows.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The big
Okay.
ones.
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh wow, 28. I didn't know that. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh yeah,
And
they should have about 30, and then they do.
6 women. How awesome is that?
Yeah. And so then when you're talking about like your training partners, you guys are like buddies, are you referring to them
Yeah. So
for the most part?
yeah,
Yeah.
my training buddies, the girls definitely, and some of the small boys that are my size.
Yeah. I love training with them. They're amazing.
They're so strong.
Yeah, they are. It's so like humbling to just have this like really skinny 10-year-old just like dumping you on your ass and clinching. It's like, oh yeah, I need to work on clinching.
Yeah, so
Uh,
funny.
yeah. Was there anything for you that you see other people having to adjust to that for you it just kind of came like second nature?
Hmm. Hmm. I think figuring out that hierarchy, like,
Mm-hmm.
I in my previous life in corporate America, what I was really good at is coming in to any situation, any big project that is cross team, cross platform, cross whatever, and I'm able to pick out the poignant, important things and kind of make shit work. When there are
Mm-hmm.
projects that involve that, they would bring me in. So my ability to observe is one of my strongest suits. So when I
Yeah.
came out here, that was the first thing I did. Like it changed, of course, every week, every month, but I was able to really stop and observe, to see how people interact with each other, when people interact with each other, how they do it, and figure out my way. Which trainers I vibe with, which trainers I don't vibe with, how the training schedules are. But I see some of the foreigners come out here and they don't take the time to observe, and I think that hurts them in the long run, because like alongside with that language barrier, like again, a lot of the Thai culture is just so much in the unsaid, and if you don't see what's unsaid, they're not going to tell you. You have to figure it out. Uh, so I think that's one of the things that I excel than the other folks that I see out here right now, is like seeing what the hierarchy is and seeing where my place is and how I fit in, rather than like being front and central. I am here. Treat me like a customer, but also treat me like a Thai. I can have it both ways. That's not how it works. You have to
Yeah.
see how the folks out here operate within their systems, and work
Mm-hmm.
yourself into that.
Yeah. I think you hit all the points on the I don't even know the term, or the points on the head.
Nails
Hit
on the
the
head.
nail with the hammer. So thanks to COVID, a lot of offices they're allowing their employees to work remotely, like permanently or semi-permanently, and there are more and more positions being offered with fully remote that are fully remote. So you don't ever have to go into office. You just have to jump on Skype or Zoom if there's a meeting or something like that. Do you think like with that flexibility of being able to be anywhere in the world, one, do you see yourself potentially like going back to the corporate world to do that and be a pro fighter? And two, would you recommend someone to do that in Thailand?
Wow, great question. Hell no, I'm done with the corporate world. Just kidding. If my manager's listening, my old manager's listening to this, I may want to come back. But okay, first things first, do I see myself going back to the corporate world? I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I'm 99% sure no. After coming out here like that, I think I remember that first Monday waking up, like grabbing my phone. When's my first meeting? Having that like anxiety, like that Monday scary, and then realizing, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. Um, but when I switched over from the corporate world over to being a pro fighter, like it was such a huge sense of relief. Like in that corporate world, everything is what lived in your head, right? 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, being in front of a computer. For what? I was like, at the end of the day, like whatever credo and mission that the company had, or how awesome it was. At the end of the day, I was just helping companies sell shit. And that was it. It brought me no to like when I really thought about it, like it didn't bring me any joy. But Muay Thai did. I was able to live in my body. I remember like going every single day when after I see Johnson and after I have a training session with him, like all my worries of the day are completely gone. Because when I'm working past with him, what like you cannot think about anything. Right? You have to focus on this one person, and he's the only thing that matters. And you have to give it your all. And then after that, like it was like everything that all the stress in my day is gone. Um, and I realized like that's what I want for my life, to live in my body and to not like live in this what made up construct that is corporate America, right? Um, so after I decided that, and after the adjustment period out here, I don't think I will go back. After I finish fighting, I have goals to create my own institution, but also help Muay Thai in America evolve as well, using the awesome skills that I did learn from corporate America. So I don't think I will ever go back to a 9 to 5 job in front of a computer anymore. The second part to your question, would I recommend people to do the remote work and do Muay Thai? Sure, if it's still your hobby. That's where that spectrum is, right? Like Muay Thai in Thailand is here, full life, like completely 100%. And then like I don't know, no Muay Thai is over here, right? And then like amateur fighting in America is like somewhere in like, if it's a scale from like 1 to 10, I say like amateur fighting in America is like a 3. But if you want to come out here and do like half Muay Thai, half remote work, cool, live your life. I think it's going to be an awesome experience. You're going to be like at I know like at a level 5 per se. You will get to have like some of this authentic Thai like Muay Thai experience in Thailand experience, and then you will get like a steady paycheck probably in US dollars as well to fund this. That sounds like a great life, um, but it's also not committing to Muay Thai 100%, because I think as long as you have this big commitment of a full-time job, um, you people cannot multitask. Like we think we can, but we really can't. In reality, we give 50-50 to the two things that we are multitasking, rather than 100% to one. So would I recommend it? It's going to be up to what your goals are. If you want to have a cool experience, the best of both worlds, sure. If you want to dive in and be a professional Muay Thai fighter, frankly, no, because I don't think you will be able to give it your all. And as my intern once said, when you do something, don't half-ass it, whole ass all the way.
I really love what you said about the spectrum. It just kind of depends on where you fall on it, and it's just like, all right, depending on what you want, yes or maybe no,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, and it's clear where you like want to fall on the spectrum as well. It's like you're like you want to go whole ass all the way,
Yeah, yeah.
and and, and because like you set that for yourself. What are some goals that you see yourself achieving in Thailand within the next year?
Yeah. Also a great question, and also something that I wish would have been asked of me the first year I joined Muay Thai. Like I spent 8 years just like dancing in like the field of Muay Thai flowers because Ganyao is so loving and so caring. And I was like, oh, you want to fight now? Oh, you cannot fight now? It's okay. You can eat and drink with me. Um, but like Johnson asked me that, and when I came out here, Matt Lucas asked me that. He sat down, great buddy of mine, and it's a planner, and sat down with me like, what are your goals, and made me write it down. Um, and I think every Muay Thai fighter, aspiring Muay Thai fighters, should be asked or ask yourself like what your goals are. But my goals out here in Thailand, as of right now, they'll of course they'll change. First is to get the experience that I lack. 10 years in Muay Thai, and I have 15 fights, which is ridiculous. I should have done so much more tournaments and had more fights than that. So get as much fight experience as I can. Fight on Lumpini, because Lumpini now allows women to fight. That's a big milestone for women in Muay Thai. Um, uh, Third one is get sponsored by Fairtex. That would mean that I can join the ranks of these world class fighters. Like that would be big. Then fight on one. That's like the big goal of experience in fighting. And then if my skills allows for my skill and style allows for it, fight for Team USA, either in the World Games or future international competitions.
Wow. And all of those things are like in your situation all well within reach. You just
Yes.
gotta put in the
Hustle.
work and you'll get yourself there, and
Yeah.
I feel like that's the most amazing part of it, because the thing is, like, most people like outside of Thailand, they see all these things are very like, maybe in another lifetime,
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But when you actually are there and you put in the work, you're like, oh no, it can actually become a reality.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing about this is I have these goals, right? But they're not set in stone. Like maybe like I don't know, down the road, I after 5 more fights, I realize that my style doesn't fit for IFMA. It doesn't fit for international, like in that way, and that's fine. Then I flex. And like that when I came out here after I wrote down those goals, second wave of COVID hit, and Thailand had to go back on lockdown again. So I had to flex again, and it's really okay. I think you set out your goals, but it's just the beginning. Like don't be attached to the end result right away, because if you're so attached to the end result that's not even happening yet or not here yet, you kind of inhibit yourself from like experiencing these things, and kind of like going with the flow, flexing and flowing as you go. And like I don't know, maybe we chat again 6 months down the road, my goals are completely changed, but that's okay. I'm living through it.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like you brought up such a good point about how some people, they fixate on like the very end goal,
Mhm.
and then they don't adjust and enjoy the journey that comes along with it. And
Mhm.
it seems like, through your experiences of life and just being in a sport for so long, you're just like taking it all in. You're like, whatever happens kind of just happens. And then like I'll adapt to it. I'll change things as needed, which is I think a really, really great life lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not like taking whatever is given to you, but it's having your goals and intentions in mind. Uh, but life throws some like curveballs at you, and it's completely fine. We flex
Hmm.
and we move forward.
Yeah. What is the most, or a couple of the most common questions that people from back home ask you? They could be like your teammates or just like people from outside the Muay Thai community. Because now everyone knows that you're in Thailand training at Fairtex for some of the best fighters right now. So then you must get like some of the same questions asked to you over and over.
Oh, hmm. uh, I think what common questions? I think it really comes. I'm a very controlling person, and that's one of
Hmm.
the bad habits of myself. Um, so sharing things on social media has always been difficult to me. If you look at my social media page now, you're going to see a lot of content, and that's because I've been making a very, very strong conscious effort to post a couple times a week. And Matt's like, post every day. I'm like, no, I don't want to. Post every day. No, I don't want to. But I'm posting quite a bit now to share my story. Um, but like on my social media, you're gonna see like it's all positive stuff. Like I rarely like share my life struggles or like bad days or anything like that. So I think the responses that people give me are generally to my positive content. So it's always it's been positive. The comments and the questions that I get. Um, so one of the um, recurring questions, not too often, but a few times, is how am I making money? Um, is this something that will sustain me? And I got this from a couple friends, and of course, I've gotten this from family, especially. Um, and it's a question that I'm still working through. For this first 6 months, I'm definitely using savings, right? I have the intention of going to Thailand, so I saved up and I'm using that. But moving forward, um, I'll really have to think through like how can this be sustainable? Um, I do I want to get that like part-time job in corporate America again? Do I get sponsorship? Do I get like XYZ? So that's one of the questions that I get from quite a few family members, um, and it's a tough one to answer because I'm still working through it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then most of my other comments and thoughts and feelings from other folks are just um, they love the fact that they can live vicariously through me, um, which goes to show that I think there's so many people, especially in the Muay Thai world in the States, are unhappy with their jobs, with life, that want to come out here, but again, like it's so attached to that end goal that hasn't even happened yet, that is afraid of taking the big jump. So they live vicariously through me. So I'll post happy and positive stuff for them to enjoy.
That's so nice. And I'm sure like whatever unhappy stuff that you don't post, it's stuff that you clearly choose to keep to yourself, and you're going to talk to who actually matters about those things, you
Absolutely,
know. And
100%.
it's a great point about social media too. Social media, it's basically whatever people choose to decide to show you about their lives. Like, don't ever assume it's like the whole picture.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are so many bad days, but you're exactly right. I have this group of people that like those are the responses I want to solicit for advice, and I go to those people.
Yeah, awesome. So Ty, do you have any fights coming up? So right now it is December 4th still, even in Thailand, 2021. Do you have any fights coming up in the near future that you're looking forward to, you're trying to get on, you're training for?
Yeah. I had two fights out here in Thailand. First fight I lost to, I was stupid for taking that fight at a higher weight class. And my coach in the States yelled at me for it. But it was a good yelling. Second fight I won. It was 4 weeks apart. But for the second fight, I got a cut underneath my eye. So I'm letting that heal. And so I'm letting that heal in all of December. So my next fight will be January 16. And it's going to be a check off of my checklist because it's going to be at Lumpini. It's going to
Oh
be, I know.
my god.
It's going
You
to
were
be,
just saying you're like, I want to fight Lupini.
yes,
Guess what? It's gonna
both.
happen in a month.
Yes.
I loved it. I love it.
Getting
Uh,
experience and check. Lumpini going to be checked off the list for sure. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's so exciting. It's gonna be under Muay Thai rules.
Yes, so Fairtex is promoting at Lumpini starting in January, and that's going to be their inaugural show. They are bringing. I think they're going to be a pioneer in this space for bringing or for being a platform to foster fighters for the international stage, but also a platform to foster women. So Prem Fairtex is the promoter, and he'll have a show every 2 weeks, so at least twice a month. And it's going to have 2 Muay Thai fights with regular gloves, 2 Muay Thai fights with small gloves, and 2 MMA fights. Uh,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, and I'm gonna be the one fighting with the small gloves, and it's cool, right? Because
Oh,
one championship fights with small gloves, so this is clearly like the understand. My understanding here is Fairtex, of course, first 2 fights keeping tradition, Muay Thai with regular gloves. Second 2 fights, Muay Thai with small gloves to set up for that international stage, and third, MMA. Like that's where the money is. And if the Thais are fighting to make money, why not make like a crap ton more with MMA? So they're creating a platform for that, which is really cool.
I love how there's levels to it,
Mm-hmm.
like the spectrum that you've kind of like talked about, and then there's another spectrum in what Fairtex it seems like they're trying to do, which
Yeah.
is really cool.
Yeah, and the cool thing with Fairtex is like I know there are a lot of other shows that have women on, but they're all. I feel that they're like a feature, right? The women on there, and you've commented on this, so like you've had face off photos where they're making you do the heart
Yeah.
and things like that. But with Fairtex, like women are going to be one of the main players. Like for sure, like there's going to be 2, myself and another female of fighter from Fairtex that's going to be on the show. And the cool thing is, it's not just going to be foreigner versus Thai. There's I'm going to be fighting another foreigner, and the other Thais are going to be fighting other Thais too. So that's going to be cool. Foreigner versus foreigner. It's going to be a bloodbath.
That's amazing. Ty, we had such like good conversation that I mean I wasn't expecting us to like keep talking for this long, but it's been like amazing just kind of hearing like your thought process and your experiences, and you brought up just like a lot of good points, and especially like so well worded too. Like I'm just like asking you stuff like right off the bat. You're like thinking things on the fly, and you still like manage to word everything so well. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ty, do you have anything to plug? Like, where can people follow your journey and keep up to date on your upcoming fight and everything else happening
Yeah.
from here on out?
Um, the only platform that I currently have and is updating is Instagram.
Mhm.
And that's where I share all the fun, happy things. I'm generally a fun, happy person. So it's not that I only share the happy things. I generally am a happy person, and I choose to share that. Um, but I would like to invite folks who go see my page, and if there are any questions or anything that you would like me to share, I would love to hear about it. Because from my point of view, I just want to share the positive stuff. But I would love to hear it if there are any burning questions folks have for me. I think soon I will start a newsletter, but that's at a later date. My goals out here right now are to train, to fight, to eat ice cream when I can, and to get over my fear of social media so I can start sharing my story, and hopefully inspiring others to come out and do the same, because I'm having such a blast. Like it's a huge adjustment period, but it's an awesome, amazing life for me right now. So I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, that's amazing. So Ty, let us know what your Instagram handle is, so everyone is like,
Okay.
everyone's like, oh my god, I want to follow this person, but she still hasn't told us what her handle is.
uh, is my name Thai-Ngan, Thai like Thailand, Thai, and Ngan.
Okay, cool. So Muay Ying is the first platform to focus those on Muay Thai that need the attention but don't really get it, namely women fighters. Muay Ying also has articles on preparing for your trip to Thailand. You can watch fights, and also read about historical moments, especially those that have happened in the past year, and so much more on muay-ying.com. We also have a Patreon account if you'd like to support financially so we can keep producing quality content. And that's patreon.com/Muay Ying, Muay Ying being one word. You can follow me, Angela Chang, via Instagram, Angela Sitan, Sitan. If you can review, subscribe, and share this episode, we would greatly appreciate it. It'll help this podcast grow and more people can learn who Thai is.
Yay! Woo!
Yay!
My first
Well,
podcast
thanks for
ever.
coming on. Well, thanks for coming on. I know it's pretty late over there for now.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Angela. And thanks for creating a space to share the stories of women in Muay Thai. And thanks for having me come on board.
My pleasure.